In today's video, we're gonna put AI head to head with a human editor so you can see the results firsthand and decide which choice is better for you and your business. For the past couple of years, AI editing has been all the rage. And if you've been following me online or attended any of my classes at conferences, then you know I started using AI editing about a year ago, and it completely changed my editing workflow. Now, admittedly, prior to using AI to edit any of my photos, I was extremely skeptical, primarily because I'm anti anything that's trendy, but you also have to take into consideration that when things come out and they're new, there are still a lot of bugs that need to be worked out. Now, if you haven't seen my video detailing why I switched from a human editor over to AI, then I suggest you go check that out and then come back to this one. If you want to do so, then I'll link it down below for you. For this example, I'm going to be using Aftershoot to handle all of the AI edits. Now, I do have a custom profile set up, so it does have a little bit of an understanding of how I would generally edit my photos. Now, for the human editor, I won't disclose the name of the company that I'll be using for those edits, primarily because I don't want it to seem like I'm bashing the company, because I'm not. I still use them to handle some high-end retouches for me. Just know that they are a reputable company, they're backed by huge industry juggernauts, and they do really good work. The gallery that we'll be using today is from a recent wedding of mine. I've already gone through and coded all of the images. Now we just need to make a copy of the Lightroom catalog and send it out to the editor. So this is our gallery. As I mentioned, I've already gone through and coded all of the images. I've already sectioned them down into the different portions of the day. The last thing I need to do to prep this for the editor is to zip the file. So we're gonna take this, compress it. Now we can go ahead and submit our edit. I'm gonna submit the order. Standard turnaround time is 3 to 5 days, but you do have the option to choose something a little bit quicker, but obviously at an additional fee. As for services, we tell them what we want. So we don't want culling, we want color correction. Lightroom catalog, we'll use my primary profile because I have one on file with them already. To add straightening is another 2 cents per image. No edits for the blog, but you see you can add those at an additional fee. Lightroom batch services, which is adding black and white photos and dodge and burn, we won't do that. Black and white edits, premium edits, hybrid edits, any retouching, we're not doing any of that. And you can see that it basically gives us a summary of what we have submitted. So we're gonna go ahead and place this order. The cost of this edit would typically be $233.40, but since I do have an unlimited plan with them that I'm still on, it's not gonna charge us anything today. We'll hit next step. Here in this last step, this is where we would upload our files. Start the upload. This is obviously gonna take some time to upload, so we're just gonna go ahead and wait the 3 to 5 days, and I'll see you guys when it comes back.
2,000 years later.
All right, guys, so we're back. It's been a full 6 days since I sent out those images to the editor. I have the new files here that they corrected. We're gonna take a look at them now. Then we'll go through, do the edit with Aftershoot, and then compare the two so we can see what the differences are. So here we have our original file. Let's take a look at this really quick. So we'll open up in Lightroom. You can see that none of these images have anything going on. So all of the settings are set back to 0. And since we're in here, we're just gonna go ahead and export a new catalog. Actually, let me be sure all of the images are selected. We're gonna export a catalog because we need one for Aftershoot. We'll export it into the same folder. So we've exported those files. So we'll go ahead and close this out. And if we go back into our editor folder, you'll see that we have the original file for our editor. We have the Aftershoot file that we just created. And then we have the color corrected file. So these are the files that I got back from the editor. Let's take a look and see what edits they came back with. All right, so we're in the color corrected file that was sent back to me from the editor. Let's go down to the collections. So if we start at the beginning in our first groom section here, Chris, we'll see that if you look on the right hand side, you'll see that these files have been developed, and we can see our before and after. So this is what was straight out of camera, and then this is where they came back with. It's a little bright in some areas. And if we look at the histogram, there's still information there, so it should be good to go, but it does look a little bit bright to me on my screen. Let's move down here. This image is a little bit green for me. Let's make a little adjustment. Add a hint of magenta. Pull back on the yellows just a tad. So this is what we had before, and this is what they delivered to us. All in all, not bad. I would probably make some tweaks like I did with this image that had a little bit of green in it. This one too has a little bit of green in there. So we'd have to go in and make some tweaks, make a little bit of tweaks to the highlights, which ultimately we could send these files back to them and say, hey, these are the issues that we had. Can you go in and go fix them? But when you do that, you have to be very specific on which files, what's the issue. If the highlights were a little bit too bright, you say, hey, I went down on this group of images to a negative 3, -4, something of the sort. Then they would go through, process those images, and then come back to you with the changes. And you would do that ultimately until you got the finished product that you wanted. In theory, yeah, it's great to have somebody go in and be able to make those tweaks and stuff for you. But if you have to put that much time and effort into somebody getting it right, that's more time that me personally, at that point, I would just go in and make the corrections myself, because I don't want to wait another day, 2 days, 3 days and have this back and forth explaining what I need them to do and where I need them to do it within the catalog, when I can just go in and do it myself. Now let's take a look at what we get from Aftershoot. We already exported this same catalog in complete blank settings so that Aftershoot can go in and do the edit on its own. What I'm gonna do is export some of the images out from here. Let's take a look at what result we get from Aftershoot. Then once we process it through Aftershoot, we'll export some of the images from both our editor and from Aftershoot, compare them side by side, and then see which ones we like the best. Now we'll have our Aftershoot file. I'll open it up so you can see that this is all zeroed out. All of these are completely zeroed out. So I'll close this, and then we'll open up Aftershoot. So if you've never been inside of the Aftershoot interface before, you can see it's like this sleek, black, sexy thing going on, right? We have the ability to add new albums, which are basically our new projects every time we upload something into Aftershoot. Now, this is a completely new install for me, so I've only done a few things inside of this particular install. Now here on the right hand side, you'll see that the amount of times that I've used Aftershoot on this particular machine, it saved me 2 days and 16 hours. And again, this is a completely new install for me on this computer. Over time, you'll be able to see this run up, especially if you're doing a lot of shoots. It will give you a bit of a calculation to tell you how much time it saved you, as well as the number of images that you process. If you've never been in here before, you can come over here and set up a new profile. You would name that profile, tell it the type of images that you're processing through there, whether they're color or black and white, hit continue. But if you guys want to see a video that's just dedicated to the Aftershoot interface, I will totally do that. Just mention it down in the comments. Let me know that that's something that you want, and I'll go through and do a complete walkthrough for you. So if we go back home, we'll open a new album. I've already colored the images, so we'll go ahead and just hit start editing. You can see across the top, we have my profile as well as my color profile that I like to edit in, and that's the Develop X profile. If you've had any Lightroom catalogs open recently, you can click here and just choose the most recent one. Or if it's not something that you had open recently, you can come here and just browse the system and then navigate to where it is that you want to go. I'll go ahead and Open up the Aftershoot version that we created. You can see it listed right here, and then we'll go ahead and click continue. Right here, you can select whether you wanted to process the RAWs and JPEGs, virtual copies, or both. It's automatically selected for both, so I'm just gonna do that. You can see down here at the bottom that we can either choose for it to edit particular folders or collections. You already know that I have my collections broken down into the different portions of the day, but it's just me and my second shooter, so I'll go ahead and process both of the folders. And that's 778 images like we submitted to our editor, and we're gonna hit edit. Now, before I click edit, I want you to take note of the time here. It's currently 12:15 a.m. Yes, it's 12:15 a.m. I'm up late recording this video just for you guys. But take note of the time here. We're gonna keep track of how long it takes Aftershoot to process these images. From our human editor, it took us 6 days to get these images back. So we're gonna go ahead and just hit edit. The time is still 12:15. We'll hit edit the 778 images, and we'll let it do its thing and come back once it's all finished. All right, guys, now it's completely done. And as you can see, it's only been 3 minutes since the time that we submitted the files until they're absolutely complete. Now, that's 778 images in 3 minutes, an entire wedding back in 3 minutes versus 6 days from submitting to a human editor. Like that's completely mind-blowing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take a look at the final images and compare them with AI and the human editor and see which ones that we like the best. So we'll go ahead and click review in Lightroom so we can open up these files. And as you can see, the before and afters here. So let's take a look at some of the images that we looked at before. I believe it was number 3, before and after. Now, from the human editor, if you remember, the highlights on this were super intense, right? But with AI, we don't have that issue. All of the highlights are under control. We have nice balance between the highlights and the shadows in this image, and I think it's pretty acceptable. Maybe there might be a touch of green in this one as well. Let's take up our magenta a tad, and that's good to go for me. I don't know about you, but that's good to go for me. Let's take a look at one of the other images further down. It was this one. This is the before, this is the after with AI. Now, if you remember, with our human editor, the exposure on this was a lot brighter and there was a lot of green in the image. I'm not really mad at the skin tones in this edit from Aftershoot, but it might be able to go up a little bit brighter, so I'll take that up a tad. Let's see, lift the shadows a tad bit more. And me personally, I'm happy with that. Without going in and having to do some crazy local adjustments with like a radio filter or something like that to be able to bring a little bit more light into this guy's face, I think this is pretty solid to be able to deliver to the client. This is something that will end up in an album or something of the sort. So me personally, I don't go overboard with the more basic images that end up inside of my wedding galleries. I don't know about you, but I don't spend 2 hours, an hour on images like this. I reserve that time for more prominent images like things in the ceremony and that sort of thing. Now I want to say we looked at image 39 as well. That one too was a little bit green from our human editor. This could stand to have a little bit more exposure, a little boost in the shadows. This I'm perfectly fine with. Might adjust the crop a bit. We put our best man on the third. We have our groom on the third. So just that little adjustment and the adjustments that Aftershoot made with the color correction, I think it looks great personally. So now I'm actually gonna go through this catalog. I'm gonna star some images and then export those images. And then we'll go over to the catalog that was provided by our human editor. I'll star those same images, export those, and then we'll look at them side by side. All right, so now we have our files uploaded inside of the catalog, and let's take a look at the comparison view so that we can see what these images look like. As you can see, on the left-hand side, we have our Aftershoot file, and then on the right-hand side, we have our human editor, and you can see the stark difference between the two. Our human editor is really, really green, and the Aftershoot edit is actually on the bluer side, but it is more true to life in terms of what it actually looks like. I do like my images to be warmer in general, but not green like we have here on the right hand side. So I'm definitely giving Aftershoot the win for this particular image. Now keep in mind, when I went through to select these images, I tried to pick images that would have a stark difference between the highlights and the shadows to figure out how each one of our candidates in this case would handle that. And for this particular image, the first one that we're looking at, Aftershoot is definitely kicking butt. So now let's take a look at the rest of them. So for our next set of images, same thing, Aftershoot on the left, human editor on the right. And again, although this is warmer and I like warmer images, the Aftershoot images definitely look a whole lot better. Same thing here, although they look pretty similar, this one has a little bit more green tone. And to me, the shadows aren't processed as well either. It's a little bit muddy in here, whereas the transitions over here look a lot smoother, which means that the AI handled the shadows better than what our human editor did. We'll move on to the next images. So we have Aftershoot on the left, human editor on the right. You see how the highlights are in this, as well as the greens. This one, the highlights are a little bit close here on his shoulder, but it definitely handled it better than what our human editor did. Plus, we still have all of the greens going on. Again, Aftershoot for the win. Same thing again. Now, in all fairness, both of these images are not handled the way that I would want them handled. I shoot in short light Rembrandt all the time. I would actually have the exposure on this darkened down a little bit more, me personally. But in terms of overall look, Aftershoot has us there closer. The highlights are processed better. The overall color is processed better. As you can see, AI is still kicking butt in our head-to-head comparison. Look at the way that AI handled the highlights and the color in the skies. Look how rich and blue this sky is versus this one. It's not as saturated, although this one on the left isn't oversaturated. The one on the right is just a different tone or different hue of blue altogether. And even look at the highlights here on this walkway. Obviously it's white, it's super bright outside, so it's gonna be really blown out, but our human editor didn't do that great of a job. And the greens in this, just inside of the greens in general, are really, really weird to me. Like it's too much going on, whereas our AI handled it perfectly. Now for this next image, personally, I'll say that I like the processing of the human editor much better. Although our human editor had been really green throughout most of the images that we've seen so far, we're getting that green and those, yellows over on the AI side, this side. So for this one, I definitely want to say that I would go with our human editor on this one. Same thing with this image. This is our human editor on our right, and on the left, the AI did not handle this as well as the human editor. Now on the human editor, I will say that it is a tint more green than what I would like, but overall exposure, the win definitely goes to our human editor. Now these two images almost look identical, with the exception of the fact that on the right, our human editor has their exposure up just a tad bit more than what's going on here with our AI, but pretty much the same thing. I won't split hairs on this one. I'll call this basically the same thing. And if we look at our last image, we have AI on the left and human editor on the right. And in this case, I'm actually gonna give it to our human editor. I like the way that it's processed a lot better. It is bluer than what's going on the left. Our AI image in this case seems to be maybe a little bit more magenta. I don't think it's yellow, I think it's more magenta, but I think our human editor is more spot on in this than our AI. So as you can see in this head-to-head comparison, there are definitely pros and cons to both. Obviously with our human editor, we're getting our images back 5, 6, 7 days, just all depending on, how many images that you're sending out. Plus taking into account the fact that maybe you have to send out for revisions on whatever the job is that you sent out. It could take a bit longer. Whereas with our AI, we got those same images back, 778 images in 3 minutes. Like that is wild. I'm able to get through my overall workflow with the wedding much faster with a whole lot less headache. Yes, you have to go back and make tweaks to both the AI version and the human editor version. But again, I'm still gonna get the images back faster using AI, and I can just make those tweaks really quick on the fly. Plus, Aftershoot actually just released a new update where you can go in and make overall profile tweaks. So that's actually what I'm gonna do. I'm actually gonna sit down and do a complete video on Aftershoot, all of its features, including the new stuff that they just released this week, and make tweaks to my profile so you can see exactly how it works and how you can use it for your business. But you guys saw, tell me down in the comments what you guys think about which images are better. Is it AI or is it the human editor, and which one you plan to use for your business? Now, if you want to sign up for Aftershoot, I've left a link down in the bio to the founders deal that they have going on right now. You can get grandfathered into the founders deal, which is an amazing price that you'll be able to have unlimited edits for the entire year. But whatever that price is now, you'll be grandfathered into that price for the life of your use of Aftershoot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this content, and if you have any questions for me, go ahead and leave them down below. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.